Absolutely. All right, well, thanks for coming. My name is Stephen Rose. I am the Senior Community Manager. I manage the IT Pro audience for the Windows team. So there are 22.6 million IT pros on the planet, and my role is to help support them through the content on TechNet, specifically Springboard. So the great thing is everything I'm going to show you today is on the Springboard series on TechNet, Microsoft.com/Springboard. So it makes it very easy to find. My Twitter's up there. Feel free to follow me, add me, chat with me, etc. And with me, as always, is my faithful companion.
Hi. Thank you very much, of course, as well. My name is Tony Keine, working with Microsoft since '95, and traveled all the way here from Amsterdam to join Stephen on the Springboard Series tour, and be happy to do some demos here.
All right. So let's jump into it. For those of you who sat my session this morning, there's some repeat in here. For those of you that didn't sit my session this morning, you're going to love this. So we'll start with how many days left until the end of Windows XP? 1,056. I have a little app. We even built it. By the way, app does not work in XP. Another reason to get off it so you can use the cool app. It takes you right out to the Springboard series, so if you click it, it's very nice. So there it is. Takes you right out to the Springboard series on TechNet. If you go out to my blog at Windows Team Blog, click on Springboard, you will see the app. You can download it. It's very nice when you tell your boss, hey, Windows XP is going away. You need me around because you only got this many more days. So it's always good to have. Where do we start? Microsoft.com/Springboard. As I said, all the tools we're going to talk about are here. And what's really nice is we break it down into really the three stages. Discover and explore, whether it's for Windows, Office, IE. Pilot and deploy. Most of the content we're going to talk about today is in the pilot and deploy zone. And manage. Finally, at the end, we have MDT. So all the key resources. Deploying Windows 7 from A to Z, getting started with app compat, video demonstrations on migrating from XP to 7. A lot of stuff that I'm going to show you today is here on the site and you'll be able to access. What tools should I know? Well, free downloads, easy to get to by going to Springboard for MAP and ACT and MDT and Wake. All the tools we're going to use today, the downloads are right here on the website. So we've made it very easy for you to get all the content that you need. And of course, support through our Windows forums. You can go out and all these tools are supported with plenty of folks from the community and Microsoft to help you answer those questions. So let's break down the tools. MAP. Very simply, what is on all of my PCs? MAP is a tool that's going to go out and give you a pretty good idea. It's not going to tell you what's on every single PC. That's really something that our tool AIS, our Asset Inventory Service, does. If you are a software assurance volume licensing customer, and you have access to MDT, you have AIS. But if you don't, MAP is a really good tool because it's going to go out and tell you, these are the applications, this is the processor speed, this is the amount of RAM, this is what you currently have to work with. Before you do a migration, it is incredibly important to know what is on every PC because I was an IT pro for 15 years. I don't like surprises, and you don't want any either. Our second tool is ACT. Tony's going to do a really cool demo for you in a few minutes here on ACT when we get to that point. But ACT really says, this is what's going to work with Windows 7. This is what will not work with Windows 7. This is what works with Windows 7. This is what's supported by the manufacturer around it. And it will shim it. How many of you know what a shim is? Let's do a better one. How many of you don't know what a shim is? Raise your hand. Okay. You don't, sir. Have you ever been to a restaurant? Well, okay. You said you weren't really sure there for a minute. I'll ask you, have you ever eaten at a restaurant, a place where someone served you that was not a family member, and you had to pay for the food when you were done? Have you ever have a wobbly table, seriously, when you go to a restaurant? Yeah? You ever shove a matchbook or something underneath it to keep it from wobbling? That's a shim. You didn't really fix the table, but the table stopped wobbling, and that's really what ACT does, is it doesn't really fix the app. It actually just sort of shims it and temporarily fixes it and makes it believe that it's all fixed and good. It's absolutely the same thing, and we'll show ACT in a little bit. MDT, XP to Win 7 in 60 minutes with data. Goodbye, Ghost. And Wake, very cool tools to apply updates, migrate data, and build a Windows PE image. So there really is 4 ways to get from Windows XP to Windows 7. And the first one is, and believe it or not, there were several magazines that wrote that this was the way to do it, was to go from Windows XP to Windows Vista to Windows 7. Using setup.exe. How many of you out there are consultants? Raise your hand. Get paid hourly. This is the perfect way for you to do it, because it'll take you hours, and if you can get paid for every hour of doing that, I encourage you to use this method. I'm sorry? That's absolutely correct. You cannot upgrade from XP. You can't upgrade from XP to Vista. You can't upgrade XP to 7, but you can migrate, including user data. So why you're taking this extra step to go to Vista, I'm not really sure, but according to several magazines, it's the way to do it. Our second one is the manual migration and install from DVD. So you're going to put a DVD in all your machines. You're going to hit go, next, 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 next. Also, for you, the consultant, great. I encourage you to do it this way. Drive cloning based on a reference Windows 7 install using Ghost or Acronis or any one of those tools. I'm going to show you why those tools don't make sense anymore, because there was a Gartner study, and they said the average IT pro was spending 6 hours. I'll say that again, 6 hours to upgrade a single machine. Why? Because they were getting a machine, building the perfect image, migrating off all the data, ghosting that machine, migrating back all the data, and then making sure that it was certified and correct, which is an enormous waste of time. And I will show you why. The final one is automatic migration with applications and drivers. Not managing images, managing application packages, OS packages, and driver packages through tools like MDT. So, MDT, waka waka waka, eating the ghost. Let's put this in perspective. Ghost made great sense when Windows XP came out. It was. I used Ghost. I worked as an IT pro. I used Ghost. I love Ghost. I make those little floppy disks and boot up off it and do the Pixie boot and all of that sort of stuff. But let's talk about what else made really good sense back in 2001. That was a cell phone in 2001. I showed one of those to my 8-year-old daughter, and she said, "How do you surf the web on that?" I said, "You don't. How do you get applications on it?" You don't. So what was it good for? I'm like, honestly, for what it cost me per month, it was good for putting on the bar to show women that I had a job and could afford to take them out. Because at a $1,200 a month cell phone bill, it wasn't cheap. And she goes, "I don't get it." I'm like, "Don't worry about it, honey." How about this one? It's the blow dryer that makes popcorn. We now put popcorn in a microwave. It takes 3 minutes, but we didn't. We used air poppers. Remember that one? Sit there and you'd make your mixtape and you'd cut it and get your CDs and your tapes and build it all out, and then towards the end of the battery life it would start to wear down. And then you'd walk in the gutter and you'd see somebody that had thrown their mixtape away with all the tape strewn in the gutter. That was fun. Remember how much those things weighed in your pocket? They were enormous. And they had those horrible headphones with the orange piece of foam that sat outside where everybody could hear what you were listening to.
Wasn't it funny, we were in the shop the other day in the hotel, they had this little gift for a kid, but she had a cassette in there.
Oh, no, yeah. It was a USB drive cassette thing, and we're like, "You're going to give us a kid?" They're going to go, "What the heck is this?" Yes, the days of making mixtapes for girlfriends and boyfriends are over. How about this one? I showed this one to my daughter, and she said, "Where's the screen?" I said, "There isn't one." "Well, what did you do?" "Well, we would do this and that, and we put paper in it, and we would send letters." And she says to me, swear to God, "That's not very ecologically conscious." And I told her she was correct. It was not. Remember that one? You walk into a company, and over in the corner be one of those bad boys with the big 5 1/4 drives in the front.
And no hard drive.
No hard drive.
Just boot from one,
Yeah, boot
files
from
on
one
the
over
other.
the other. Or if it did have a hard drive, it was very small.
360 KB, the first ones, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They were tiny. And you would go into the server room, and there'd be that 486 box in the corner with the turbo button in the front that was running the most important application for the company, connected to like a 1900 baud modem. And you'd say, "Why don't you virtualize this?" They said, "Well, we don't touch that machine anymore." I'm like, "Well, what happened to the person who wrote the software?" They're like, "That person's dead. We don't touch it anymore. We're not going to virtualize it. We're scared of it."
It's kind of funny. It's also the time of the BBS, the bulletin board
It
system.
was time of, and remember CompuServe? Remember the gigantically long CompuServe addresses with the 12 digits at CompuServe.com? What's your email address? 9654839 at CompuServe.bb, whatever.
I like one of the jokes back then was like, how do you know you're addicted to the internet?
How?
Well, it's like you have your ISP has broken down. You cannot connect to, the internet. And finally, in total despair, you pick up the phone, you mimic the sound the modem makes.
There you go.
And you get a connection.
Ooh. Yeah, you've been definitely doing it too long. And sector-based imaging. So the challenge. get from Windows XP to Windows 7 SP1, not just Windows 7, but Windows 7 SP1, to get from Internet Explorer 6 to Internet Explorer 9, not 8, get from Office 2003 to Office 2010, migrate all my user data in place, and do it in less than 60 minutes from a USB stick. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it from this XP machine probably in about 25 minutes, and I'm going to do it, but wait, there's more. Whoops, I went one too far. But wait, there's more. Oh, no, there isn't more. Somehow I'm missing a slide. I'm missing a slide, but wait, there's more. I have this machine here. So this machine here is a Lenovo T60. This came with Windows XP. It has a Centrino Duo. This was one of the last XP machines right before Vista came out. Wow, don't make that sound anymore. And this one over here, this is an L420. This is a relatively new PC from Lenovo, runs about $900, and we're going to assume and pretend and literally have this has the same load it comes out of the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to migrate this one and upgrade this one from 7 to SP1, from IE8 to IE9. I'm going to put Office 2010 on here with all the drivers it needs for all the printers that are local to my company and have it completely ready to hand to somebody, and I'm going to do this in 18 minutes. By the way, that includes the amount of time that it takes me from the person says, hi, I have 50 new machines for you, till I'm handing it to the end user. This machine, 25 minutes, going completely from XP to 7, upgrading to 9 and adding the browser. So what I'm going to do, just to save some time, is I'm going to get this one to the starting point, and then what I'm going to do is pop in the USB drive in this one, because this one starts in Windows 7 from an F12 boot. So you're not going to see much, but we'll go to that one. Let's go to E.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I just lost. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm good. All right, so I'm going to plug that one in, and let's wait for that to find the USB drive. So this is also 64-bit, so I'm going to do a 64-bit on that one. Let's switch over to E. And I'm going to do 64-bit. I'm going to do a little magic here behind the scenes while I'm waiting for that one to come up. So we'll give that a moment. And I'm going to get this one to the starting point, but I'm not going to start it till this one's at the same place. So it's going through, and what I've done is I've created a USB key with MDT. I am not connected to the internet in any way, shape, or form, and I am going to do this deployment completely offline. So there's no servers, there's no internet connection, nothing else at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and let the MDT client load up here for a second. So like I said, I'm going to get this one staged and wait till this one's ready, and we'll go through that. Now, one of the nice things about this is I can completely automate this process. How many of you out here support salespeople? Wow, quite a few of you. I feel bad for you. I apologize. Salespeople, not the most technologically savvy people. They have a lot of problems. We understand that. So we could completely do this without going through any of these steps. They would literally hit F12 and run through it. But let's face it, that doesn't make a very good demo. So I'm going to go through the steps manually so that you're able to see. But also at the end, I'm going to show you where you see all the choices that we have been through and how your users will end up seeing that.
What I like about this one is that you already set up a couple of task sequences here, so you can basically have a full list of different environments, or if there are really specific machines or specific tasks, already you can set that up here, so those come preloaded with the application, everything you need.
Yep, and Windows, and this also supports Windows XP, Windows Vista, and Windows 7 through MDT, so I can use it for all of those. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Windows 7 Enterprise x86. I will choose to refresh this. Note, I cannot choose upgrade, so I have no choice. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. I then have the computer name. I then can choose at this point to either keep it as part of a work group, I can point it to a database that holds the username, the password, all of that information, or I can have the user type it in manually. This, again, can all happen behind the scenes with no one writing anything down, which is fine. I can then choose where to save my data in settings. I can say, you know what, all the data is right here inside my C drive, inside of my user folder, but I want this data to be migrated off to a shared drive somewhere else because I don't want any more of the user's data. I'm just going to point it towards a remote folder and do it that way. I don't want anything locally. Or I can make this, you know, don't move it off, or choose to just specify that location. So I have a good amount of choices. I also, at this point, can save a computer backup as a WIM file. So I can also take that, point it towards another direction, and take a complete backup and move it there. Why? In case there's a problem, in case there's an issue and I need to bring that machine back. And I have that option. Language and preference will leave where it's at. Time zone, I'm going to leave where it's at. I'm not going to install Office at this time, but I could. I'm going to pick a high security password. We'll use the word test. BitLocker. I can also, at the end of the series, say I would like for you to go ahead and BitLock this drive and go ahead and do it and make that my last step if I chose to do so.
The one I like about that is you also have the ability, of course, which is standard by BitLocker, to have the decryption key, the one that's really necessary if you want to recover that drive, roll that up into the Active Directory.
Absolutely, so you can do Active Directory recovery for it. So go ahead.
Yeah, so BitLocker really has that notion of being an enterprise ready. We extended the computer object schema, so in order to get that BitLocker recovery key in there. So using this way, you immediately can, of course, also get the disk back if something happens to it.
Yep. All right, I need an official timer. Who wants to be my official timer for this? Who's got a good watch on? You do. But I know you. You would bend the rules. I want somebody I don't know. I appreciate that, Alex. How about you? I don't know. Have we ever met before, sir? We have not. Do you have a watch on? Okay, what time is it? 16 after. Okay, I'm going to kick off both these demos.
You have an iPhone with a stopwatch?
If you do, you have to leave. Don't allow the iPhones in here. All right. So both of these demos have kicked off, so that's great. So we'll check on these over the next 20 to 30 minutes and kind of see where they're at. So let's go ahead and switch back to C. So as I said, I'm doing this off a USB key, or what I like to refer to as a pixie stick, not to be confused with the large things filled with sugar that you give to children you don't know late at night. A little bit different. There are really three great uses. I mean, there are a lot of good uses. People say, well, why would I want to deploy off a USB key? Why wouldn't I do it via F12? Why wouldn't I do it off the network? And here are some scenarios that work really well with that. And the first one being, my boss is Windows XP, and she wants to have Windows 7 by the time that she lands. What we can do is literally say, hi, here's a USB key, hit F12, and then just hit start. That's it. It's 2 steps. Walk her through it, go through it, or him through it, whoever it is, and they should be able to do that pretty easily. And this will migrate the data in place. It'll include any apps that you've built out as part of that. Number 2, one of my personal favorites, salespeople. Try asking a salesperson to send them your laptop for 5 days. Hi, send me your laptop. It's going to take 2 days to get to me, a day for me to image it and blast it out, another 2 days for me to send it back. That ain't going to work. For those of you that support salespeople, you are very well aware of the special needs of salespeople, which includes things like a terabyte of hard drive space for their PST, because of all the pictures and jokes and golfing anecdotes and things like that that they send back and forth to other salespeople. But ask a salespeople to be a person to be without their laptop for 5 days, they're going to say no because they can't do their job, and they will push back. The great thing is we send it to the salesperson, we go, here you go. You're going to put this in, and you're going to hit OK. And that should only be about an hour help desk call. Maybe an hour and a half, depends on how savvy a salesperson they are. But you should be able to walk them through that pretty easily. And finally, you want to do a pilot to 10 machines. Why are you going to set up a huge SCCM server or go through and set up a WDS server when you're going to be rolling out Windows to 10 people? Utilizing the USB stick is a great way to set that up, and it's a great way to do it. So here's the best part, and my personal favorite part. MDT 2010, Windows Deployment Server, WDS, are both free. There's no charge for these products. They don't require anything. You don't have to have software assurance, volume licensing, nothing. All you got to do is go to Springboard and download them. That's it. Acronis is not cheap at $1,200 a server and $200 a client. Are they giving Ghost away for free these days? Last time I heard, they're still trying to make some money off that product, and they still sell it to you. These are free tools. They're faster, they're easier, they're going to allow you to manage better, and they're free. So, I got to pull out my USB drive is starting to fail on this machine, so I find I actually have to unplug it every once in a while and plug it back in. So we'll give that a second. Come on. There we go. All right, so that one picked back up. Okay, so we already kicked off the MDT demo, so we're good there. And I talked about hard links migration. Very, very simply, this is one of the best parts, is you don't need to back up or move the data when you're using MDT. MDT takes everything inside of the user profile. That is the files, that is the user accounts, that is the application settings, not the applications themselves, and it automatically says, okay, I'm going to kind of move these over here and mark them. I'm going to wipe out XP, I'm going to put in 7, and I'm going to bring this all back, which means that the person who works in accounting that has the desktop with pictures of kittens on it and the 5 icons on their desktop, as long as you have packaged those applications, when she sits down in front of her Windows machine, she's going to have the background pattern with the kittens and the 5 icons on her desktop, and that's key. I was chatting during my session this morning and my session yesterday that when I would do IT, when I would sit down and plan out things for end users, I would always imagine in my head this woman that once used to work at a company I worked for, and her name was Dot. And I always think about Dot. Dot had worked for the company for 19 years. Dot, at one point, I believe, had babysitted the CEO of the company. That's how old she was. Dot knew how to do things one way. It was the way that she was taught by the person before her, and she did that. And if Dot had a problem, I would have to go to Dot's desk, and I would have to solve that problem. I guarantee you, every one of you in this room has a Dot. Would that be correct? Yeah. Raise your hand if you have a Dot at your company. Yeah, pretty much everybody does. And you know that Dot, you can't, Dot not going to, no, you're going to her desk. You're not going to answer a question for Dot over the phone. Dot is not going to allow that. And if Dot can't do her job until Outlook opens, until she figures out why her macro isn't working, nothing else is going to happen for Dot that day. So thinking about things like that are key. Dot is also my test subject. For example, when I went to go migrate Dot to a newer OS, I realized I should probably search Dot's computer and see if there's any software or files in places that they shouldn't be. Guess where Dot was storing all the company financials? Inside of the System32 WinNT folder. When I asked her why, she said, because the machine told me to save it there. No, Dot, I guarantee you the machine did not tell you to save it there. Remember, when you are using MDT, it will only migrate what is in the user profile. That's desktop, My Documents, pictures, videos. I suggest you search. Also, remember things like the PST. Teach you a great trick about PSTs. Take the PST file and move it to the My Docs folder and hide it. That way, whenever you're doing a migration, whenever you're doing a backup, you're always getting the PST folder. Let me ask, how many of you have wiped out and refreshed a computer, forgot about the PST, and lost somebody's PST? Didn't you wish I'd given you this tip before you did that? Yeah. So it's good. Think about that ahead of time. What do I need to do that? Did I back up the PST? Did you get it? But by using that opportunity, when you move to 7 to standardize, it makes it a lot easier. So hard links migration is how that works. Those files don't move. It locks them in place. It moves everything else around them. But you got to make sure everything's inside that folder. So it's absolutely key. How does MDT work? It's very simple. It's built upon drivers, applications, and operation settings. And that's it. You install your ingredients, you create a bill, and you're ready to go. So planning for Windows 7 and Office. I like what I like to call really the wheel of pain. The wheel of pain is anytime you walk into the person who controls the purse strings at your company, the looks on their face, and what will happen is you tell them, I'd like to start a Windows 7 pilot. How do you know who that person is? They're the person that looks like that whenever you say that you need money. But they look at things differently, and it's important to understand how management looks at things. For example, testing process, infrastructure remediation, image engineering, they don't look at it that way. When I say I need to go through a testing process, they say, do I need to invest in test hardware, personnel, or just infrastructure? How about infrastructure remediation? Do I have to replace all my users' hardware? And image engineering, do I need to build and maintain an image for every hardware class? App management, are all my applications going to work in Windows 7? And do my techs need to manually start migrating people's files? Office deployment, Office 2, does this mean more images and more testing? Security, how do I think about policies and data and security? Do all my users need to send the hardware to IT or be without it for several days? And how is this going to impact users and help desk? These are all questions that you need to ask and sort of go through at that point.
This wheel is actually, of course, from the whole deployment solution accelerator.
Yep.
That comes with a full set of documents for each step, like what you need to look at, what are the tools you can use for each step. It comes with sample documents as well that are filled out for sort of like a demo company, so you can see what those documents can be used for your project. So I think it's a great, when you're going to do deployment, to actually download the toolkit and start working with these documents to guide you through these steps.
Absolutely. So it's all key stuff. So really, test, hardware, image management, user migration are all key things, and looking at those hardware specs. If you had a machine that came with Windows Vista, it's going to run Windows 7 beautifully. If you had a machine in XP, certainly something to think about. Is it a good experience for the end user? I had a guy in Dallas that turned around to me and said, so I got a Pentium 3 with only 512 megabytes of RAM to work with Windows 7. I went, oh my God, would this be a good experience for the end user? And he goes, well, it's a little slow. If, you know, let's think about how people work. They have 5 apps, 12 web pages open, they're streaming Dr. Laura, they're playing a game, they're doing that. You need what's going to be a good experience for your end users. And that's really key. And you need to make that decision. Is just because you can install Windows 7 on a machine, should you install Windows 7 on that machine? And that's a question that you need to ask yourself. So that's kind of key to think about as you're going through it. The other great thing is security updates are going to be automatically part of that. We're making the process fast, not disruptive, and we're able to have less problems than we had before in the past. So I'm going to move forward here a little bit. And let's talk about the application compatibility toolkit. Or as Tony likes to refer to it, the layer of lies.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the layer of lies.
Yeah, when we talk about application compatibility, there are of course a lot of applications that we already test and we already know that they have a problem when we go towards a new OS, and most of them actually we do have the fix for that particular problem already built in there. So we add a lot of the fixes for known applications in the OS. So most of the applications will just work. Now for the applications that don't work, of course, we do sometimes change things which tends to break applications. For instance, when we went to 64 bits, we made a requirement that any driver that's going into the kernel, it now requires a valid signature on the driver. Now, if you have an older version of the application that does not have that driver, then it will definitely not work. And that, of course, requires you perhaps to upgrade the app. Now, for some of the applications that are out there for a longer while, and they just require Windows XP, they do a hard check for that, or they're like, need specific administration rights, then at that point, what you can do is create that shim, what Stephen also mentioned earlier. So it's one of those things where we actually refer to as the layer of lies to actually easily explain that to people. And what it comes down to is like on the operating system Windows 7, we put this shim, this layer of lies, and this application will now start up and say like, am I running on Windows XP? And the layer of lies will say, yes, you are. Am I running as an administrator? Absolutely. How much disk space do I have? Well, how much do you need? It's all good, it's all fine, and that's basically all the fixes we have out there for applications. So, I'm going to do a...
You need to switch over, you're still on the main slide.
Yep, so let's
You're on
switch
F,
to...
I believe now.
Yep. Let me see.
There we go.
Get that to go. All right. So the application compatibility toolkit, or the ACT, the first time you install it and you configure it, it actually has a complete functionality where you connect it to a database, or you can have it set up a database for you. You then have the ability to go out and collect, so you can install it on the machines, your images you're using, so you can go out and collect, and it will then analyze it and use it towards the list of applications that we have. So over here, you can see the application compatibility manager. We have Chris Jackson tomorrow at 10:15 going into a session way deeper in this. He's Mr. App Compat, so he can go way more deeper in this. But just to show you really a little bit of the explanation of what that notion of a shim is about, how that works, is I have one of the demo applications. So when you install the application compatibility toolkit, it comes with a demo application, which is the stock viewer, and there's also this little lab guide that explains you how you can configure that stock viewer application to work. So by default, installing the application compatibility toolkit, starting up that stock viewer, and it says like, no, you got to be an administrator to run this application. Okay, so it launches, go into trends, you can see that doesn't work either. I got some really weird message. It tries to help me with some other additional random hacks. It's kind of fun thing, right? So you can see, okay, I definitely need to work on trying to get this application to work. So what I'll do is I go and open up the compatibility administrator. So over here, I can have a look at all the applications that are already by default installed into the OS. And it's quite a list, so it takes a little while to load that. So we'll see all these mission, business, critical applications pop out there in a second.
Like all the games that are in there?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. I actually had a real-world experience with this. I had a netbook that I got, and the driver for the touchpad which would allow me to zoom in or zoom out, or as I like to call it, embiggen. It wouldn't let me embiggen or insmallen. And by running ACT, by being able to shim it, it said, look, this is SP3, just install, and it installed beautifully, and I was forever able to embiggen and insmallen. So this is one of those examples of where that worked.
Yeah, and we see here it's like lots of great business tools, Arcade Fever.
Art of Magic, I like that one.
Yeah, you see a lot of old, oh, here we had some business there, some antivirus.
There you go. Ah,
yeah,
best.
So we have some business there, but most of these all have fixer form already in there. So of course my stock viewer application, it doesn't have, it requires admin rights. So these are basically all the different fixes that I can apply in a shim to get an application to work. So you can see here there's a whole lot of list. And just to scroll down a bit, which I like when we get to the Windows versions. Because over there you see, of course, it actually is a layer of lies, because everything we can see here is all like version lie. So it's kind of a fun way to put it, right? All right, so let's fix that application. The way we can do it is so we can open a database. Had Chris Jackson help me and create a little database already for that. So here's the stock view application. He's going to elevate the create process, force admin access. These are the fixes that I'm going to apply for the stock view application. So I'm going to right click, hit install. Well, successfully installed now. Hitting start and going into that application compatibility demo application stock viewer. We see without any error message, no admin address required, just passes through that right now because that's passed onto this executable. Even going into the trends, it will immediately now just work. So it's some of those little things that you can test with the application compatibility toolkit for those applications that are not by default in there, that don't work. Apply some fixes to it, give it some lies, and make sure that that shim is then worked. So once you've got that database working, there's no need to install this toolkit on all your clients, because by default, you just have a command line option, so you can run it as a command line in your login script or whatever to push out the fixes for this application within your environment.
Cool.
Go back over there?
Yep. So one of the other things that I really like about ACT, and let me go ahead and add on my screen magnifier here, is the fact that it also is going to do this for you, which is really nice, is it's going to go in and tell you the assessment. This application will work with, it'll go out, it'll do an inventory of your applications, it'll bring it back and say, these will work in Windows 7. These are supported by the manufacturer in Windows 7. And if you run into something that has this kind of evil-looking red X at the bottom that's not going to work, it'll tell you why. It'll say, hey, here's the problem, here's why it's not going to work, you can download a new version, install this patch, no support found, etc. It's going to tell you what the problem is and what you need to do in order to make that work. So ACT is going to, in many cases, fix the application for you. It will inventory your apps, it will categorize your apps, it'll rate them as working and not working, and give you a solution. And it's a free tool. ACT is a free tool that you can download. It is not difficult to use. Be aware, if you have laptop users or users who are not on the network at all times, it could take several days, even several weeks, for you to be able to get all that information back. If you want an agent ready where you can install an agent and have all that put back, then look at something like Asset Inventory Service. But as a free tool, it's a really great one for solving a lot of simple key problems that you may run into as you start to look at that. Office. Many people said, I want to make Office part of my rollout, Office 2010. So what are some of the new tools that have come out that help me to do this better, smarter, faster? And the first one is something called the Office Environment Assessment Tool. And very, very simply, it will go through and find all of the plugins that are being used by your product. So a good example is, let's say you have a CRM system, and that CRM system does plugins into Outlook. Will those CRM plugins work with Office 2010? Will my Acton Goldmine, my Salesforce.com plugins work with Office 2010? It will go through and take a look at all the plugins and tell you if they are compatible or not compatible with Office 2010. So what a great way to know before you do anything, is this going to work properly or not? My next one, the OMPM. This one will actually go through and take a look at documents and see which ones are not compatible. For example, it will look at an Excel spreadsheet and say, these macros are not going to make the upgrade. You're going to upgrade to Office 2010? These macros are not going to work. This Access database is not going to work. Yes, sir? It's part of the toolkit. Yeah,
most of the tools are separate downloads for the Office suite. So
but it's now inside of MDT, as you can download those. You'll see them as the downloads, you can run them. So it's not inside of MDT, but it will be managed and downloaded via MDT. No, this is not ACT. This is different. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is not part of ACT.
If you want to check out these tools, just go to the Microsoft/Springboard site and then go to Office for the
You'll see all the downloads right there.
Discover and Explore, the Pilot and Test. That's where basically you'll find links to all these tools and more information about that.
How am I doing on time? What time is it? How long has it been? 20 minutes? I didn't even realize. Go ahead and switch over.
There you go.
That one's done. So not only is this done, I should have been done in 18 minutes. I should have pointed to you 2 minutes earlier. But just to see how much it's done, not only is it installed, but it's removed IE8 and replaced it with IE9, something that is often a manual push. And I now have, if I can type properly, Office 2010. How many of you in here use Ghost? Okay, raise your hand. That's fine. Keeping your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you could deploy a brand new OS, upgrade to Windows 7, SP1, Office 2010 and 9 in 20 minutes? Yeah, nobody's keeping their hands raised anymore. Now, I'll take it a whole nother level. How many of you, when a machine walked in through the door that you had never seen before, be able to do that in 25 minutes? And I'm adding 5 minutes to it because that's how long it takes me to download the drivers. Are you using MDT? No. So how are you in 25 minutes from the time somebody says, here is a brand new Lenovo that you've never seen before, to having your corporate image on it in 20 minutes? How are you doing that? And you're also including the service packs, you're including IE9 and Office 2010, and you're doing it all in 20 minutes. Then now you're cheating. I'm saying if you call CDW and say, send me 150 of these puppies, and the UPS guy goes, it's here, by the time it gets upstairs, you've downloaded the drivers, you've added the drivers to MDT, and you're ready to blow it out. You're having the OEM install it. Well, yeah, I could do that too.
I can cheat it in 2 minutes. I have VDI.
Yeah, you can do VDI as well. Yeah, so that's, if you got a bunch of surprise laptops, you couldn't do that, could you? No. Okay, just making sure I'm telling the truth up here. All right. So that machine is done. So let me switch back to some of the Office tools, and I'm going to show you MDT and how we built that and how we did that. So can you switch me back to C, please?
Yep. There you are.
All right, C. So the next one we have is group policy. It's very important if somebody has the ability to do something in Office on Monday and you migrate to Office 2010, that they can do it on Tuesday. And if they were able to not do something, that they can't all of a sudden be able to. This goes through and tells you the group policies and permissions that various users have and will continue to have once you roll that out to those users, and that's a really great key thing to be able to know before you roll out those issues. So pull that
One of the things that was changed in Office 2010 is really great, is that you have the notion of like the group policy or using the Office customization tool. Mm-hmm. So one of the things actually already point out which are your locations that you can mark as trusted resources. So
yeah, and we can do that with the Office customization tool, which I'll show you in just a minute because I'm going to dump into MDT. So our first demo is done. Our second one is almost done. It looks like it's preparing my desktop, so I'm about 4 or 5 minutes away on that XP machine. But this is a really good time for me to open up and show how MDT works. So the deployment workbench itself, when I go into Information Center and Components, I see all the components, map, act, all of those tools are here inside of my deployment workbench, and it will automatically update those as needed when I need to through that, which is absolutely great that it's going to do that for me. I lost my USB drive here again. This XP machine is starting to fail on me, as I'm assuming some XP machines are for you guys. So there's all the components, and if I say, hey, you know, there's a newer version of the KMS Manager for Ops Manager 2007, I can click here and download it. So it's going to manage all these Solutions Accelerator tools. Let's get into the fun stuff. So start with the operating system. Your first step is, I need to import an operating system. And I had Office, I had Windows 7. I would now like to change that to Windows 7 SP1. So you very simply click this Import Operating System right there. Click it, and it's going to give me some really cool choices. It's going to say, I have a Windows DVD, a CD, or an equivalent, and I can click that, hit Next, and it will automatically build this very, very cool ISO or WIM file for me. I already have a captured image file, a WIM that I got from WDS or SCCM. Go ahead and pull that one in. Or I have a Windows deployment server. I just want to pull in the files from Windows deployment server. So that's how you get your OS into here, and when you go from Windows 7 to Windows 7 SP1, you basically delete the Windows 7, replace it with SP1, and say, rebuild my image. That's it. Every machine you push forward from that point in time has that SP1 already installed. It's not how you're going to update your current machines. You're still going to use your current update tools to do this, but this is how you're going to prepare for new machines that walk in through the door. So that's my first session, and once I get those in, I can right-click, and I can take a look, and it'll tell me this is a Windows x86 version 6.1. Here's the operating system. Here's the image size. Here's the HAL information. All of that is listed. Let's go back to E for a moment. This was my XP machine, and my XP machine just finished. So I took a machine from Windows XP to Windows 7 in what, about 25, almost 30 minutes? A little less? Where am I at time-wise? About 26 minutes. And I migrated over user data, which is still back in exactly the same place it was at before. What do you think of that? Pretty cool? Yes, sir. You could script that, and there's some different ways to do it. We'll go back to that image. This is building that HAL out for you. So you're going to really have one. You'd have to start to create sort of a separate session for that. You're better off using a HAL replacement on that. There's some tools that will automatically update that as you do it. You can catch me offline. I'll be happy to point you towards some of those. Okay? Send me back to C. No, the profile is just migrated. Whatever is in the local user profile on that machine is brought over. Yeah, if the PST file is in the Office hidden folder, that just got wiped out, because the only thing that we're migrating over is what is inside the local user profile on that machine. So if you go into, Start, C. It depends. I'm also talking if you're using POP3, which many people are using, Exchange, etc. So this is what you're going to get. I mean, you're going to get your contacts, your desktops, your downloads, favorites, links, my docs, my music, my pictures, save games. That's it. This is what you're going to get, is what is inside that user folder here. If it's not inside that user folder, boom, you're not going to be able to see it. Not always. That's not everybody does it that way. Some people don't do it inside the user folder. Sometimes it goes inside. Yeah. If it is the hidden folder, yes, it will come over. So as long if it's inside that profile. I've seen some people that don't do that. Correct.
Yeah, it actually will take that Outlook profile as well. So when you start up Outlook, it will just find that account yet in there in the back.
And some people, when they do backups, don't always look. I see in the back. Hang on a second. They don't always look for hidden folders to do backups, and they completely miss it and wipe over it. So that's the problem too. Yes, sir. I'm sorry? Yes, the user state migration toolkit, which is built in, is what's grabbing it. Yes, you can, of course. Absolutely. You can customize any of these task sequences via XML if you want to.
So the remark was, are we using the user state migration tool for that, which is a tool actually that does mark that area for don't wipe these fields don't wipe these sectors on the hard drive, and you can customize that using the XML file. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Drivers.
Wait.
Yep. I'm sorry. Was there another question? It will. Even the hidden folders inside there are getting, so we're doing the app, remember I said application settings get moved over? That's the app data. Not the application itself, but the app data, which is great, because then when the new version of Outlook goes in, if you've done it, and I'll show you in a moment where you set that, hey, this is where the profile folder is, it's automatically going to grab it, move it up to speed, and automatically, the first time the user opens Outlook, If you've scheduled it, hey, here's where that's at, it's going to pull it in. So the question is, you know, are we going to be able to find those hidden folders? Absolutely, they'll get migrated over, and the user, as long as you haven't moved that PST somewhere else or done something weird with it, which I've seen people do, it'll automatically grab it and it'll point to it, which is great. So, good question. Only if it's inside the user profile. So what about the cache? Again, if it's inside the user, local user profile, it gets migrated. If it's not inside the local user profile, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, also bear in mind that some things, of course, were changed nowadays with since Windows Vista and Windows 7. We had XP just had one folder with the user data. Now it's still so like you have the local low, you have roaming. A lot of changes are made there, right? So even like, for instance, like migrating Outlook over, the newer Outlook that has the N2K file. So any email address you've used has been cached in there. So like a file like that, you might want to see if that actually is part of that profile that is migrated. Yeah.
Right, and sometimes they'll do custom dictionaries. Those are not stored in the defaults. They may want to move those over, especially if you're dealing with law firms or medical firms where there's a lot of things like that they can do, or pre-populate it as part of that. Yeah, over in the back corner. Is there transfer to what? Wireless network profiles. No, because those were not really stored in XP and it didn't work that way. So that was that's one of the things about Windows XP we run in with a lot of people is one of the reasons why it doesn't really make sense anymore is it wasn't really built for wireless. It wasn't built for mobility. It wasn't built for spyware, malware. So there wasn't those type of profiles and stuff that we're moving over. So that isn't even an issue within that you're going to start to see. Yes, sir. These are great questions. So it's fine. We got plenty of time to still go through all this. We've got 27 minutes. I'm fine answering this because I know we've talked about this. A lot of you come specifically to ask specific questions. So it's fine. Yeah. You're actually, if you're in an enterprise, you're going to use SCCM. You can use MDT to build that, but SCCM, if you're in a major shop and you're looking to build that out, then that's really key. Yeah, that's a pretty long question, and I like to repeat it, but it's difficult. The question was basically like, should we work with WIMs or this? Yes, you can still work with WIMs. You can bring a WIM into this. MDT is great for MDT alone, small company, few desktops. WDS as we start to move out to 50. SCCM is still the best way for a large enterprise to manage packages and manage to do that. There are plenty of sessions this week on SCCM. Thing is, it's not a free product. You got to pay money for it. It has eminent functionality. SCCM is the best for large enterprise companies. If you are a small to mid-size or you're doing only a pilot and don't want to invest in another SCCM license, this is a great option to be able to do that. But I would say that SCCM is going to be the best way to deal with large packages, manage WIM files, and do that. But what's great is anything you build in MDT, let's say for your pilot environment, you can import into WDS or SCCM. If you've built that perfect WIM and image in SCCM, you can bring it into WDS or you can bring it into MDT.
I also think we can break it into two sorts of scenarios, right? The first one would be like, how do I get the new OS or a new refreshing OS on a machine with the applications I want to have that user to be available immediately? And the other one is like, how do I maintain and update those applications? So when it comes to new machines that are coming in, it's really easy because they're going to get the latest image on there, and then it's just a matter of updating the MDT to have the latest software, the latest version, the latest patch available on the MDT.
And, it's a single share that all these products can pull from. So you're not repeating it. Once the share gets updated, everybody rebuilds their image on SCCM in MDT or WDS. It's automatically updated across all those. So you're never having to repeat the work, which is really nice.
When it comes to actually updating that client, once it's already running, the people are already using that machine, how do you update the applications on there? There are a lot of options, but like Steven said, as soon as you get a little bit above that number and get more towards the enterprise, you really want to have the notion where like I'm going to push out an application. Was that successful? Which were the machines that are not successful? We want to have the reporting back on that. And that's something, the group policy and everything doesn't give you that by default. So
another really good thing is if you are in an enterprise company and you're currently using Ghost, downloading MDT and using WDS to play with this, just to really get the feel for it, is great before you move to something like SCCM. which has all these extra features. If you walk in and you go, oh, this is like MDT. I'm familiar with this. I see a lot of extra choices, but I understand how the basis of this works. And it's something you can set up at home between two machines very easily and start to play with. So it becomes a great sandbox for getting yourself ready to move to something like SCCM.
I'll be more than ready, happy then, of course, take offline if you have more comments on that. So we have one more question over there.
I'll get to that in a few minutes. So let me.
So the question was, is there a way in the MDT to run custom strips? And
we should probably get people to go to the microphones.
Yeah.
Doing questions. So
yeah.
Let me get through a little bit more of this. We'll ask some more questions, and actually have you come up to the microphone so everybody else can hear you because I'm losing my voice and I don't want to keep repeating everybody's questions. So it's good. It's been a long week. All right, out-of-box drivers. One of the great things is I was saying before, you know, those machines are coming upstairs for my gentleman over there. Well, all I need to do is go to Lenovo's website and put all the drivers, DLLs, EXEs, everything into a single folder, and then literally browse to that folder and say import. It's going to rip the DLLs out, it's going to bring everything in I need, and it's going to import those into this large directory right here, which is what's really nice. It will repackage some of those, and sometimes it'll run the EXE itself, which is great, but it's going to make it a lot easier, and you're not going to sit there and start running a bunch of EXEs and doing that. It's going to drop it in here. If you've got printers within your organization, you can actually add the drivers for those printers. So a user doesn't have to go out and connect to the internet and download it or have a generic one when you want them to have a specific one. Good for plotter printers, HMI, additional hardware that people are going to be connecting to that are standard within your organization. It's already here. If there are drivers they do not need that are creating confusion, they can be removed. Or a new driver, go, hey, this new laptop supports USB 3.0. Great, well, let's pull out the old driver, put in the new one. Based upon BIOS, as it looks at that machine, it should be able to figure out which drivers it needs and does do it, and you can also create custom packages within that. So literally, removing a driver is as simple as saying, hi, I don't need this driver anymore, I hit delete. It says, great, are you sure you want to remove this one? Absolutely. Boom, it's gone, I can view the script I finished, and I can import the driver back in. So all I'm doing now is managing operating systems and drivers and applications. It's my third part. We're looking at multiple types of machines in one directory, yes, because the IBM, the Lenovo is going to say, I'm only looking for the Lenovo drivers, I'm not looking for the Dell drivers. Yeah. If you have older machines, you may want to create some custom packages if the BIOS is not smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah, we have one good example was in the Netherlands, we set up a demo apartment where we had all the top OEMs bringing their latest machines. So we had 20 laptops in there. And basically, in order to image those and to be able to use those, we added the drivers from all the different websites. Once I booted it, the plug and play detects it, and it was working all brilliantly. So, yeah. Yeah, that stick I have, every driver you just saw there is on that stick. Yeah.
Okay? So applications, we have three choices. We can do an application with the source file. We can do applications without source files or located elsewhere on the network, or an application bundle. As long as we can bundle it, so you can add things, not just Microsoft software. We can add Adobe Acrobat and things along that line that are part of that image that need to be in there. You may find there is some custom software you use that is not able to be packaged. You will have to probably run some sort of script off a share and install that later. But generally, many of the most common applications can be packaged and then installed. Yeah. I thought you were going to add something there. You had that look like, I want to say something, and then you don't. That's okay. Mess me up. All right, Office 2010 Pro. So what we've done is we have brought in Office Pro. It tells us which version. We can see the details. Is it a quiet command? Where's the working directory? Uninstall a registry key name. Is it part of an application bundle? Dependencies. We can add a dependency and say, hey, make sure that you install Link after Office, .NET Framework before this, Salesforce.com after Word, etc. So we can even choose the order that applications install to make it much easier. When we get into Office products, we have some cool choices. We can say, here's a product key, here's the display level, accept the EULA, cache only, always suppress reboot. I can open up my XML file and I can edit that here, or even go into the Office customization tool. Now the Office customization tool, as I click here, I'm going to click OK, allows me over 1,400 different security aspects, features, and settings that I can bring into the product when it's installed directly on the metal. Now, of course, these can also be done via group policy, but this is great when that machine's not going to be connecting to a server, not downloading a GPO, and we have certain things that we want to have happen on a local level.
The thing about the MDT, of course, is that once you've add Office, it actually recognizes it at Office, and that will add all these options and functions right there, like the admin button.
Yep. So I can go in here and I can say, hey, specify an offline address book, prevent saving credentials. I can go here into Exchange and I can say, here's the offline address book, turn off hierarchical aspects. I can go into my Outlook options. I can go into my various preferences, and here's my search options. Turn off automatic search. So all of those settings that are inside of Outlook, I can set right here. And I can set these based on a group and OU, anything I want to do within that. So I can set it that the first time they open it up, it finds that PST, loads it in, automatically pulls their name over, knows what their exchange is, connect, and starts to upload it or download it all. Doesn't give them access to the Forms tool, gives them access to other things. So I have great control over Office. There's 1,400 security features in here. I can even say automatically opens to Outlook today, and automatically here is the URL for my intranet, which I want to show up in the Outlook today. Yes, sir. That's an 8 gig. 8 gig.
The question was how big was the USB stick, and right now it's 8 gig.
Just to show you how big that all the stuff is, just to be absolutely transparent. This is, I have 4 gigs free. This one is a 16 gig, and I still have 4 gigs free. If I did not have Windows XP on here and only had one version of Windows, I could probably do this in less than 8 gigs. I've got 3 OSs, 2 different versions of Office, because I have Office 2003, Windows XP, I have Windows 7, I have Office 2010, all on here, and a 64-bit and a 32-bit version of Windows, and I'm barely 8-9 gigs. And all those drivers. Yeah. It's not huge, is it?
You can open it, right?
Yeah, and I can open this, and you see here's my boot, so here's all my fonts that I'm bringing in. You see the Japanese, German, all the language stuff, which I'll show you in a moment. I've got my boot FX. I have all my deploy folder. Here's my applications that I've done. Here's my Office 2010 Pro, and you'll see this looks just like the CD that you would install. That takes up a lot of room right there.
Actually, if you go back and you have the $OEM folder there, that's actually the C drive, the root drive of the target machine. So if you want specific folders to be in there, you want to add your own tools there, drop them in that folder, and when the machine is done with the deployment, those folders will be on the root of the drive of that disk.
Okay. Here's my IE9 package, because I'm also removing IE8 and putting in the full IE9 package in here as well. So all of that is in here. It's actually pretty transparent on how nicely this stuff all comes together. I even have a migration folder with some fake data in it. That's taken up almost 1.5 gigs, 2 gigs right there. So pretty small. All right, good question. Thank you. So that's the Office customization tool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And now, let's see, task sequences. Oh, also packages. Here we could add antivirus packages. We can add language packages, service packs, hot fixes, things like that that we now want to make part of the image can also be added here. Task sequences. Let's create a brand new task sequence. Yes, they can. I'm going to go through it, and yeah, you can go into packages, and when you create a new one, or I can right-click on these. So I can go into packages, and I can go here, and I can right-click, and I can go to properties, and I can actually connect it to a XML file that says, if this machine is this, do this, if not, etc. I can drop that all in there. So my task sequences, let's talk about creating a new task sequence. I'm going to call this one test, and it's going to be called test and test. Okay. So I got some cool choices here. I can build a sysprep and capture at this point. Just go out, sysprep this, capture all, do that one. I can go out and do a standard client task sequence. I can even do P2V. We talked about this in my session this morning, the physical to virtual. Physical to virtual will take the complete XP machine and virtualize it inside of Windows 7, giving you full access to all of your previous applications. Before you use that, few things to be aware. It does require software assurance volume licensing. You must be an SAVL customer in order to use that. And I'll also remember is anytime you use either XP mode or P2V, you are now doubling the amount of machines that you are managing, meaning if you put that on 100 machines, you're now managing 200 desktops. Because every single one of those, you got domain connections, antivirus, updates, things that you have to manage. Takes it to a whole nother level. If you don't want to do that, then you probably want to look at something like MedV, which will allow you to do that. So we can pick our appropriate sequence here. So I'm going to pick a standard client task sequence. I'm going to say this is a Windows 7 x86 one. I'm going to go ahead and next. I want to do a MAC key standard key because I have volume license. I don't want to put in a key at all. Here's my name. I'm going to do no admin password at this point in time. I'm ready to go ahead and build out that sequence. I can say finish. I right-click that sequence and go here into properties. And this answers a lot of those questions. Can I change the order that different things happen or what happens at those steps? Remember that BitLocker screen I showed you earlier? There it is. That's where all that information could be put in. And any one of these steps, for example, when I get to install applications, I can go here to options, and I have a whole bunch of really cool options. I can add an if statement. If this does this, then this is not, will not work here. I can do a sequence variable. So I can do an operating system version, a query MMI. I can do installed software, folder properties. So if I say add installed software, it opens up and says, okay, where's the MSI file? And it will grab it, and it will put it in, and then we can choose match any version, upgrade, not upgrade. I can go in here and I can say I want to do operating system version, and you know what? This is only for x86, and this is only going to be for Windows 7 original. You'll see servers in there too. Condition equals must be greater than XPSP3. So we can put in these variables, and then we can continue to build this out as we get around those choices. So we have tons of different options. What order does this install in? What is that variable? How do I point out? And I can even go in and then edit any one of these. I can simply go in and go back and change any one of these variables. I can disable the step. I can tell it to continue on an error, no matter how I choose it, and then go ahead and do this with any of these steps in here, whether it's a state capture, part of the pre-install, part of the install. When I get to installing the OS, I can go back in and again pick any one of these variables. I can even tell at this point, go query the system version before you do that to know that you're doing the right one, or query the OU or a sheet.
One of the examples we use for that, of course, is like if you have a machine that has problems with the BIOS they are on there.
Yep.
If it's that particular BIOS version, I don't want to put Windows 7 on there, or don't want to enable BitLocker.
Right.
That's a great example when you do that. The other option is like if you go down on the left, you have that custom scripts there in regards to the question we had earlier, like can you add your own scripts and everything there. You have one option for that there.
I'm looking for trying to figure out where it's at.
There, custom tasks.
Yep, there we go. So here's where I can go ahead and bring that in. So again, I can add those custom tasks. You're asking for scripting, that's where the scripting would drop right in. So, all right.
All good.
So last but not least, how did I build that USB key? Well, very simply, I went here, here's my overall rules, and I go to my PE settings, and it says, generate a light touch WinPE WIM file, or generate a light touch bootable ISO file. Literally, I do that. I make my USB key bootable. I drag over everything onto that USB key, and I'm done. If I make an update, I add a bunch of new drivers. I change it to SP1. I change it to IE9. I do it in. I literally go back. I right-click this, and I say update deployment share, which then goes out. It takes a look at everything that I've dropped in. It updates the deployment share, and then I right-click. I go to Properties. I go to Windows, and I say, OK, time to generate a new stick, a new image for WDS, or a new image for SCCM.
So one of the things I like about this is when we, of course, also look at the Windows deployment server, the free services that you can just add onto a Windows Server 2008 or Windows 2008 R2 server. We often have the question like, well, it's easy to take the Windows deployment server and add a Windows 7 DVD to that. But how does it work in combination with this? Well, what we see here is like we generate also this Windows PE WIM file. And so in order to combine the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and the Windows deployment server, you just take that WIM file and add that to the Windows deployment server. So when a user hits F12, you actually are going to load the WIM file from the MDT.
I also have the choice here of all drivers and packages, generic or specific ones. Include all drivers, and you create selection profiles. This is sales, this is help desk. I can include all the network drivers or say, no, it's only the ones that are specific. Mass storage, video cards, system class, fonts. Here are where you can also customize out some of those images. Learning MDT is not difficult. Give yourself about 2 to 4 hours and some chance to play with it, and you'll be an expert on it. We've got tons of videos, tons of content on Springboard that will walk you through every step, and we're actually building a document that will be available in July that will actually be a step-by-step with picture and video guide that we're building that we should have done in about 60 days. That will actually walk you through step-by-step and then show you a video of what you've just done. which will be really great. And it's very, I've never touched MDT, walk me all the way through this. And you'll find that on Springboard, probably sometime in late July is our goal to have that out. So that is the MDT tool overview. You also have inside of advanced configurations, you can create a database in here. So we can connect to a server name, so you can say, hey, here's all my users, here's their domain information, here's the scripts that have to run, here's where they belong. I have media that can be dropped in. I can create an area of linked deployment shares, or I can even do a whole thing of selected. Remember those profiles? Remember I said you can create a custom profile for sales and all that? Here's where that new selection profile is created. So I can say, you know what, this is test. And I can add in some comments, and then I can go to next, and I can say here, okay, which folders? You know what, for sales, they're going to get these applications and these operating systems, and et cetera. I can go all the way through that, and I can say, you know, let's say they get everything except for, you know, these, and I'd have to have a bunch of application packages, but I could pick it. It says, great, are you ready? Build it. And that's it. Then I just build that disk, or I say, here is that package to go ahead and build it out. Again, eminent configuration with this tool. And as I said earlier, it is a free tool, which is one of my favorite things about it. So what I also want to show here is this, and this will be available, of course, in the decks you're going to get, and I may do a blog post with this again. But here's some really good reference. If you go to Windows Team Blog, click on Springboard, you'll see a blog post. You can always just type in bootable USB, and the first blog post goes through how do I make a bootable USB drive. So we'll go through and it will show you that, and it goes through some of the top questions. There's a second post about adding Office, some of the questions I've gotten over the last year as I've done presentations like this. There's a wonderful 3-part blog post that Jeremy Chapman did, and Jeremy's now gone over to Office. It's for you. That goes through the Windows primers, the pros and cons as you're taking a look on moving from Ghost or Ghost-like tools over to MDT, all the things you need to be aware of, and a great blog post on performing P2V migration with software assurance that links out to some white papers that's out there as well. Windows Team Blog, click on Springboard and go there. So we have about 5 minutes left. We do have some cool giveaways if you have some good questions, but I want to take this time to answer questions. So there's a mic, so let's actually get you guys up at the mic so I don't have to keep repeating the questions.
Can we move the light up a little bit as well?
Yeah, can we make it a little brighter in here so we can see, or change that out? Really good. And if you're leaving to drink, thank you. Make sure you fill out surveys, but we'll try to wait out for questions. And by the way, I have good prizes. I actually have, these are very nice. These are, you plug these in, they'll help to recharge your phone, they're USB, and they also hold 4 gigs worth of data. So, cool stuff. Yes, sir.
Is this on? Okay. We're a config manager shop, and one thing that we're struggling with is the correct way to do the SCCM integration and where to actually install the MDT to really complete that full integration.
I am not the best guy to answer that question. There's a great, very smart guy named Jeff Wetlaufer walking around who's doing some SCCM sessions, and that is his area of expertise on this.
Actually, the learning booth is a great way
and the learning booth. I'd go over to the SCCM booth, and that's a great question. It's a better question for them than me. I'm not the strongest in SCCM. MDT is really my area of expertise, so I'll point you to them. But I will give you a prize for doing that. So Tony will.
All right, I don't know if you can answer this then.
I'll try. If you have a lot of SCCM questions, those I won't be able to do. We'll go back and forth.
So if you develop, you do all your work in MDT.
Right.
Is there a way to import all that work into SCCM?
Absolutely. You can import it into WDS or SCCM. So you're going to have a single deployment share. You point SCCM at that deployment share, and it sucks it all in. So whoever makes the update, they choose to update the share, and it will do it across those. So that's what's great is you only have to do the work once.
Hallelujah. Okay.
So yes, absolutely. Good question. Yes, over here.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah, we're transferring data all the time manually in our migrations. We have a refresh cycle of 3 years on all of our machines.
Okay.
So I see a lot of this, what you're showing is simply redoing the same machine or upgrading, migrating the same PC to a new operating system. But how does this work with the refresh cycles?
Well, that's what was on this one. This, I'm assuming this is a brand new out-of-the-box PC that came with not your load. It's the same thing. Although you're not moving data, all you're doing is saying, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not going to migrate data because there is no data to migrate. But you know what? I want Windows 7 SP1, not Windows 7. I want IE9. I want these apps on here. So it's exactly the same process, and that's the one that I did in less than 20 minutes with the stick to a customized image. So hard links migration is what is going to happen. If there's nothing to migrate, nothing migrates over, so you're fine. It takes an empty user profile to an empty user profile. The more data in the user profile, obviously the longer this takes, but it doesn't make a difference. It's the same process for both.
So when those the new machines come in, you look at which driver are not by default in the operating system, you add those to the MDT, and then it's just like doing a new, fresh install on those of the image with the application, everything you want to put on there.
So you don't want to use this tool to actually try to pull data over from your old machine?
No. The idea is you're going to use this, and then you would hopefully, with your old machine, and you're saying, so you have a new machine, you're going to get it ready for that, but the data, no. The data you're going to want to throw up on a share, and for that one, yeah, you're probably going to have to pull it down. There is no way for it to go to that machine and do it. But it's a good way to start to back that up and start to set
The
that
user
up
state migration tool is the tool you might want to look at for doing that, which is it's a great automated scriptable tool that you can say like, okay, I'm going to take these user data, only take these files, whatever you want, move that to a share, and on the new machine pull it back in. You can do that.
Thanks, you guys.
No
problem.
problem.
Thank you
Come
for
on
your
up,
time.
grab a
Love
thing.
a gift for you.
Over here. And I won't have enough for everybody, so just letting you guys know I got about 3 more. So hopefully the information I'm giving you is as good, if not better, than the swag.
Good luck.
Yes, sir.
We redirect our users' document folder to a network share. How is that going to affect the migration?
We don't have a way of pulling in, roaming user profiles in XP, it's not how it works in 7, it's totally different. It has to be on the metal for this to happen. If it's a roaming profile that's out there,
It's not a roaming profile, it's just a redirect of the My Documents folder.
I just want to not going to know to look out to that server and going to grab it.
I don't know.
Okay.
If the user,
So-
you can just wipe the disk then, put 7 on it. When the user logs on, your group policy will apply and point to My Documents back to the profile. It should be good.
Okay, so it's not going to affect it, basically.
No, the only thing is you look at if the group policy are also taken into account the application settings and if you want to migrate those.
Excellent. Perfect.
I'll make you a deal. Who still is going to be around tomorrow? Because I will say this, I have one where it's missing the stick for some odd reason. So whoever gets this one, walk back to the Windows booth and say, hey, I didn't get a stick in this one, and they'll fix it for you. And we'll do that. So I don't want to jip anybody here, but I also promised 3, and I want to make sure you get about 3 or 4. Well, here, this box is then for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's nothing in it.
All right.
So give that one to him. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi. We'll be using MDT to migrate from Windows 7, XP to 7.
Yeah.
But we would like to go ahead and make an image of the machine before we do the whole upgrade.
That's the whole thing is you should not be making images. You don't make images anymore. Is the days of managing images and having to manage those, you don't do that. Why do you want to make an image of that?
Just in case we miss out some key data for the user. So is there a way to back it up?
There is. You can say at that one step where it says create a WIM file and choose a backup location, you can do that. Or if you are you a software assurance volume licensing customer?
Yeah.
Are you looking at doing this on just 1 or 2 specific machines or across the board?
Probably just across the board.
Then you're probably going to want to do WIMs. But that's going to take a lot of time. You're going to be moving a lot of data bandwidth, and you're really going to need to set up some really secure, some really serious policies to do that.
So what time are we adding on to
it depends on how much data that user has.
You're
So
copying.
You're copying that complete user profile
like
and all the data that makes that machine over. And if they've got 300 gigs of data,
I mean, the maximum hard drives are like about 80 gigs. So
that could be times how many users?
about 200.
It's 200 times 80. That's a lot of bandwidth.
But if I do a few at a time,
Sure, of course. I mean, it's all a variable. You can do that. It's probably something you want to do nights, weekends, holidays.
yeah, we're looking at about 5 or 10 per day, so
Absolutely.
as slow as
And
possible.
that should be okay. But you can do that step that says, go ahead and back this up as a WIM to this area. You can do that and back up data at the same time. So you separate what makes the machine unique from the data. You can even separate or do that as all in one.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Come on up. Yes, sir.
How are you guys handling domain joins and computer naming with MDT?
With MDT, what you can do is say don't. You can say keep it as part of a work group and then go ahead and do that. Or you can script it. It can be scripted saying, here's the username, here is that. It's automatically going to do it, and it's going to go ahead and drop that in. So scripting it is probably going to be the best way.
One of the steps in that MDT, when we looked at the different tasks and the application we had, one of those steps is computer naming. And you can actually have like percentage this and take
or point it
username.
towards that database that we showed that lists all your users, the username, their domain, the login, and automatically does it so that they're ready to go. You can do that either way.
A lot of options there. It's really
Good
well.
one. That's the last
one.
Unless, did you give away the broken one?
No, of course not.
We'll ask. If someone wants the broken one that's answering the question, we'll give it to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got I have a large enterprise, and we are software assurance.
Okay.
And my thought was to use P2V to capture the whole user's laptop.
For
desktop.
how many users?
My management is really scared of USMT missing something.
Yeah.
But we've got like zero tolerance policy.
How many machines? You're skirting around my question.
Thousands.
There's no way. You will lose your mind because if you have 5,000 machines, you now have 10,000 machines you have to manage and do. P2V is not going to be a good solution for you.
What if I use during the deployment up front P2V the laptop so that the file is there? Use hard linking to say, okay, just leave this alone. This one VHC alone.
Here's a few issues. I see where you're going with this, but let's say it's 40 gigs. You're adding now 40 gigs to that machine. You're going to have to create policies to uninstall it. Again, you've got to have software assurance volume licensing. You're adding a lot of extra work. You've got to add antivirus. You've got to join those to domains. They become part of management. You are adding a lot of overhead to what you want to do.
Is it just for backup? You actually want to run those virtual machines, or are you just?
I mean,
that was the trick. See, he's jumping to. You're jumping to. I want to actually boot it. What if I just because it's Win 7?
Right.
What if I mount it?
XP, you cannot do like a dual boot. You can mount it to access the data, but you can't do a dual boot into it, which means that you won't be able to run. You could turn it into a VHD, which means you could access the data, but you wouldn't be able to access the apps.
Okay, I really think that would be enough.
Right, and I'll say this: if you've done your app compat work, if you've done a successful pilot and you've tested all your apps, it's unnecessary. I kind of feel like you're doing this because you're unsure if you've really found every app and tested every app and made sure that every app works.
Well, there's the app and then there's the data.
Right. Okay.
Just the stray Excel file that somebody absolutely needs that we're going to miss because of USMT.
Right.
Like I said,
it's
not necessarily me that doesn't trust the software. It's management.
A key thing also at that point is maybe to rethink how you do things. Is maybe to take a lot of that user data off of those machines and put it onto a single file server where it is being backed up, where it is being managed. So it doesn't become about the data not being found. That data is in a centrally stored location that's backup managed and done. So if somebody deletes that file, you can pull it back via backups and do that and start to connect to it. So maybe, and this is something to think, and I understand what you're saying, and it's not a bad idea, but you're adding a lot of work and a lot of time. Are you a software assurance volume license client?
Yeah, yes.
Call MCS. We have specifically our teams that will come in and they will evaluate your network. They'll take this as part of those and go, here's your best way to deploy. There's guys like Steve Campbell who are brilliant that are going to walk in, look at your environment and say, here's the smartest way to do this and why you want to go through this. I would say you really kind of need to bring in those folks. And you've paid for that consulting. You get a certain amount of hours as part of that contract.
Yeah.
Be able to bring that in and do that and take a look at that, but also look maybe at re-standardizing where some of this data is kept, how to better management as part of that process as well.
So why don't we wrap this up and have the few people that still have questions left, just feel free to come forward, and we will, of course, would like to thank everyone else for coming out. Thanks,
everyone.